You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show, where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. In the world of music, only a few names resonate with as much talent as R. Kelly's. Renowned for his undeniable contributions to R&B, his life and career have been overshadowed by rather malicious allegations and convictions. But as we look at history and the justice system, some ask, could R. Kelly, like others before him, be granted clemency? Could a leader like Donald Trump, who famously posthumously pardoned the first black heavyweight boxing champion Jack Johnson, intervene in R. Kelly's case? Today we'll explore this complex and polarizing question. Before diving into the arguments, let's be reminded on what the case against R. Kelly looks like. In 2022, R. Kelly was convicted of federal crimes related to racketeering and sexual exploitation, even though a lack of evidence to prove these charges was eminent. For those who choose to prejudice R. Kelly, this was a moment of success for the multiple women who came forward with harrowingly disturbing stories that were created in a smear campaign against him. However, those who choose to remain open-minded about the case have questioned whether Kelly's trial and subsequent sentence reflected a fair judicial process, or if societal biases and media narratives played a role in tipping the scales. To be clear, this video does not seek to dismiss or undermine any voices in this case, but it's also worth examining whether the justice system treated Kelly fairly or disproportionately, especially given the history of black men in America facing harsh sentences compared to their white counterparts for similar crimes, and sometimes being deliberately wrongfully convicted only because their skin color is black. Imagine Jack Johnson was humiliated and stripped of his legacy as a champion in boxing only because he preferred to date white women to their black counterparts. And in a rather shameful prosecution by the same U.S. government that is currently harassing the legacy of R. Kelly, the very same Mann Act was again taken advantage of to pass a wrongful judgment that forced Mr. Johnson to run to exile in Europe. To better understand the potential for clemency in R. Kelly's case, let's revisit a moment from 2018. President Donald Trump granted a posthumous pardon to Jack Johnson, again the first black heavyweight boxing champion.
We all sort of have heard of Jack Johnson, had a very tough life and an interesting life. One of the greatest fighters, Lennox was just telling me, one of the greatest fighters ever. The early 1900s. Today, as president, I've issued an executive grant of clemency, a full pardon, posthumously, to John Arthur Jack Johnson.
Despite his athletic prowess and outstanding contributions to his country's pride, Jack Johnson was targeted in the early 1900s for his relationships with white women, culminating in a racially charged conviction under the same infamous Mann Act. For decades, just like many are now doing for R. Kelly, activists fought to clear his name, arguing that his prosecution was less about justice and more about systemic racism and racial prejudice, an argument that was always going to be very true. But again, the government and their usual partners in crime gave a deaf ear, just like they are trying to do right now with the R&B King. Trump's pardon of Jack Johnson, even in his death, was however a symbolic event and a recognition of past wrongs and the racial biases ingrained in the justice system. It was a move that resonated deeply with advocates for racial equity on the basis of better late than never. However, it is rather sad that it had to take over 100 years before a successful black American citizen who gave his life to make his nation proud to get the justice he deserved. Could a similar story apply for R. Kelly? Does the Department of Justice want us to wait yet another century before R. Kelly can be given the justice he truly deserves? It would be a big shame. R. Kelly's career spans decades, during which he not only became one of the best-selling R&B artists of all time but also influenced countless musicians positively. Hits like I Believe I Can Fly became anthems of hope and triumph, inspiring millions, yet as his fame grew, so did those who sought to exploit him come even closer. With a story quite similar to that of Jack Johnson, the question remains whether President Donald Trump will recognize that again this is yet another act of racial injustice and grant him a second shot at freedom. Or will he simply look on and wait, such that R. Kelly is also later on pardoned posthumous in his death? Supporters argue that Kelly's case was marred by media sensationalism and systemic biases. They point to inconsistencies in testimonies, the influence of documentaries on public perception, and the idea that he was treated as guilty long before his trial concluded. Throughout history, clemency has been granted to individuals who, despite their crimes, demonstrated remorse, rehabilitation, or whose cases reflected broader societal injustices. Donald Trump, during his first presidency, issued pardons to a wide array of individuals, including high-profile figures like rapper Lil Wayne and commentator Dinesh D'Souza. These actions sparked debates about the nature of forgiveness and whether public figures deserve clemency due to their influence. However, Donald Trump in his unbiased judgment felt these were cases arising from social injustices in which these individuals were targeted largely because they were successful in their careers and therefore a big catch if they ended up behind the prison gates. It's undeniable that here is a general tendency by government to pride in arresting and charging high-profile citizens as a way of making them an example in society, and probably to salvage the media attention they come with to make the world believe that the systems are working. And this is the injustice Donald Trump detests. You probably need to be a successful celebrity in your own right to understand this form of prejudice at the top, and thankfully, Donald Trump is one. If President Trump were to consider clemency for R. Kelly, therefore, it would make a lot of sense to those who now understand how the system of prejudice in this country actually does work. Even though those against R. Kelly would criticize this, it would probably be the right thing to do if the justice system is playing games. It's important to ask ourselves what justice truly means. We need to decide whether justice is all about holding people accountable and harshly punishing them for crimes we are not even sure they committed, or if it's about recognizing when societal biases may have influenced outcomes and redemption of such peculiar cases. With Donald Trump as president-elect, R. Kelly's case sits at the intersection of these debates, challenging us to grapple with the complexities of fame, race, and justice in America, where we can see high-profile citizens targeted. Whether or not R. Kelly's supporters successfully petition for clemency, his case highlights the need for continued scrutiny of the justice system. Can we ensure fair trials for all, irrespective of their celebrity status and free from media influence and systemic bias? And can the system refrain from targeting successful citizens to use them as examples and proof that they are working hard? As we conclude, let's remember that justice is not only about punishment but also about fairness, humanity, and the ability to identify mistakes made by the justice system in order to correct them. What do you think? Should clemency be considered for R. Kelly, or would it undermine the current progress of his legal team in arguing out his defense? And is Donald Trump the most likely president to see through the mistakes made by his government in imprisoning R. Kelly? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let's continue this important conversation. If you wish to take part in a live interview on this channel discussing any of these topics, let us know by emailing us on sashahnnewsroom@gmail.com for scheduling. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say. To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.